After Ogidi was buried alive and the earth was pressed flat above her, Kenga did not sleep for 7 nights. He sat before the fresh mound where an altar stone now rested, watching the ground as though it might suddenly open again. The witch doctor had warned him that the soil would drink slowly, that the spirit trapped beneath would need time to wake fully. On the 8th night, Kenga made the first blood sacrifice. He slaughtered a goat whose cries echoed longer than normal. When the blood touched the altar stone, the wind shifted sharply. The flame of his lamp bent toward the grave as though something beneath was breathing it in. That same month, all his wives conceived. Women who had once mocked Ola now brought gifts. Elders praised Kenga openly. Songs were sung in his name. 9 months later, the cries that once ended in silence now ended in life. A healthy boy, then another, then another. Kenga wept publicly. He slaughtered cows. He invited friends, family, and distant relatives. He danced until his knees failed. No one noticed that every celebration ended before sunset or that Kenga always returned to the altar alone at night. Each child was dedicated secretly. On the 7th day after birth, when the mother slept and the child was bathed, Kenga would take the baby near Ogidi's grave. He would whisper words no one else heard. A drop of blood, sometimes his own, sometimes that of a goat, was always offered. His wives never asked questions. Joy blinded them. Years passed. Kenga became rich. His barns overflowed. His compound expanded. He had many children, strong sons and stunning daughters whose beauty turned heads wherever they went. The sons grew tall and fearless like their father. When they reached maturity, Kenga called them one by one at night. Before the altar, he made them swear an oath. "You will never speak of what feeds this house," he said. "You will never abandon the ritual. If you break this oath, the ground will remember." The sons obeyed, and for them, life went well. They married easily. Their farms prospered. Their children were healthy. But the daughters, that was where the curse sharpened its teeth. Nadia was Kenga's first daughter. She was known across villages for her beauty. Men followed her with their eyes. Women envied her skin, her smile, her gentle voice. Yet when marriage time came, suitors disappeared. Rich men avoided her. Brave men suddenly lost interest. One man who promised marriage fell sick the very week negotiations began and swore he saw a woman with a swollen belly standing by his bed at night. Eventually, a poor palm wine tapper asked for Nadia's hand. Kenga agreed. The marriage began with shame instead of drums. Nadia moved into a leaking hut. Hunger followed her like a second shadow. Her husband tried, but effort does not always defeat fate. Crops failed. Wine turned sour. Their first child cried endlessly at night. Nadia began seeing muddy footprints inside her hut. Footprints that led nowhere. As more daughters came of age, the same thing happened. Only weak men came. Only struggling households accepted them. Only marriages without laughter followed. Some husbands became bitter. Some turned violent. Some ran mad. Kenga's daughters were never barren. In fact, they conceived immediately after marriage without stress, but struggled to feed the children. Another daughter's children refused to speak until age 7. Kenga noticed, but he said nothing. At night, the altar stone often felt warm. Kenga died suddenly during a hunt. No wound was found. No animal was seen. His eyes were open, staring. When his body was brought home, the wind circled the altar 3 times. The sons continued the rituals. The daughters continued to suffer. After Kenga's burial, the compound felt different. The sons continued the rituals exactly as they had sworn. On certain nights, they slaughtered animals at Ogidi's altar. They spoke the old words. They wiped blood on the stone. They believed obedience would protect them. And for the sons, it did. Their farms flourished. Their wives were conceived easily. Their children laughed freely. But Ogidi's anger did not walk through the paths of men. She chose the daughters. Amara was the most beautiful of all Kenga's daughters. People said, looking at her too long, making the heart ache. Her skin glowed. Her laughter was soft. When she walked, men forgot their thoughts. Suitors came early, but something strange followed her. Whenever marriage talks began, misfortune followed the man. One lost his job suddenly. One's mother fell sick and blamed Amara in her fever. Another claimed he saw a pregnant woman sitting silently in Amara's room at night. In the end, only Okori, a poor fisherman with no land and no ambition, married her. On their wedding night, Amara waited alone. Okori did not come inside until dawn. When she asked him why, his voice shook. "I heard breathing in the room," he said. "But it was not yours." After marriage, Amara's life shrank. Food became scarce. Okori drank heavily. When the fishing nets returned empty, he blamed Amara. When storms destroyed his canoe, he blamed her womb. At night, Amara began to feel cold hands touching her belly. She woke often to see the room dark, even when the moon was bright outside. Sometimes, she smelled fresh soil. Sometimes, she heard a woman humming a broken lullaby. When Amara became pregnant, joy lasted only one day. The second night, she dreamed of a swollen woman standing at the foot of her bed. "You carry what is mine," the woman said calmly. Amara woke screaming. Zim married a tailor who could barely feed himself. He was gentle at first, grateful even. But poverty eats patience quickly. Children refused to sleep in their house. They cried and pointed at corners. They spoke of a woman, with no legs. One night, Zim followed their gaze. She saw wet footprints appear slowly on the floor, leading toward her. She fainted. From that night on, Zim stopped speaking for weeks. When she finally spoke again, she asked only one question. Why did father do it? The daughters' suffering did not end with husbands. Their mothers-in-law despised them. "You brought nothing but bad luck," one woman spat. "My son was strong before you came. Your beauty hides poison." Some daughters were beaten. Some were starved. Some were sent away at night to beg. And always, at night, the same dreams returned. A voice whispering, "You eat what was bought with blood." But the sons said nothing. They kept sacrificing. One night, during a ritual, one son cut his hand by mistake. His blood fell on the altar. The ground shook slightly. A voice, deep and calm, rose from beneath the earth. "Not yours." The sons froze. They understood then. The sacrifices were not for protection. They were payment. Ifoma ran away from marriage talks. She said she would rather die alone than suffer like her sisters. But fate followed her. She was raped one night while fetching water. She became pregnant. The man disappeared. Her child was born with eyes that never blinked. On the seventh night, the baby stopped breathing. When they buried the child, Ifoma laughed until she collapsed. "They are collecting everything," she whispered. Ifoma began to pray to God for mercy. She continuously sought God's intervention. For many years, she prayed and sought solutions, and, one fateful night, she dreamed of Ogidi clearly for the first time. Ogidi stood tall, no longer buried. "My body was soil," she said. "My curse is blood." So she confronted her brothers. "What did father do?" she demanded. The eldest son slapped her. "Never ask that question again," he warned. "Some doors must remain closed." By the time the village began to fear the name of Kenga openly, it was already too late. People avoided his compound, not because of the sons. Those ones walked proudly, rich and confident, but because of the trail of misery that followed his daughters like a shadow that refused to detach. Women whispered whenever one of the daughters passed. "That is one of them. The cursed beauty." Halima was quiet. She learned from her sister's suffering and spoke little. When a man named Bako, a crippled firewood seller, asked for her hand, she accepted without protest. At least, she thought, he would not beat her. The wedding was small. No drums. No laughter. Even the sun felt distant that day. For the first few months, Baco was kind. But kindness could not silence the whispers he heard at night. He began waking suddenly, sweating. "There is someone standing near the door," he said once. Halima saw nothing. Then he started seeing mud on the floor, fresh and wet, even during dry season. One night, Baco screamed. Halima rushed in to find him clutching his head. "She is asking for the children," he shouted. "She says they are hers." There were no children yet. Within a year, Baco lost his mind. One night, he picked up a machete and began cutting at the walls, screaming that the house was closing in on him. The next morning, he was found dead, his own blade buried in his chest. Halima did not cry. She simply returned to her father's compound and sat silently near the altar. The ground felt warm. After that night, Ogidi no longer hid. She appeared in dreams clearly, her body half soil, half flesh, her belly swollen, her eyes calm and unforgiving. To the sons, she said nothing. To the daughters, she spoke softly. "You live on borrowed joy. You eat food bought with my breath." For the first time, the sons questioned the ritual. They increased sacrifices. They added dogs, goats, and even a cow. The altar cracked. Blood soaked into the soil faster than before. One night, as they chanted, a voice rose clearly. "Your obedience does not erase your inheritance." They ran. The youngest daughter, Sophia, gathered courage and confronted the truth. She went to the altar at night alone. "Who are you?" she asked, shaking. The ground shifted. Ogidi's voice rose gently. "I am the price your father refused to pay alone." Sophia fell to her knees. "Why us?" she cried. Ogidi answered calmly. "Because blood feeds forward." For many years after the death of Kenga, everything was good for the sons. Peace lived only on the surface of his household. The sons prospered. Their barns were full. Their wives laughed easily. Until it happened. Romanus was born during a season of abundance. He was taller than his brothers, sharper in speech, and stubborn in belief. Unlike the others, he did not fear the old ways, he questioned them. He watched rituals from a distance and felt disgust rather than reverence. As a young man, Romanus traveled far. He saw other lands, other beliefs, other gods. He returned with a hardened heart and a mind unwilling to bow. When their father's ancient staff of authority was brought before him, as tradition demanded, Romanus refused to touch it. "This wood is soaked in lies," he said. The elders gasped. The brothers warned him quietly. "This staff feeds our house," one said. Romanus laughed bitterly. "No," he replied, "it feeds fear." On a night without moonlight, Romanus did what no descendant of Kenga had ever dared. He went to the altar alone. The stone was warm, as it always was. Blood stains still darkened its sides, though no sacrifice had been made in days. Romanus stood before it, breathing heavily. "If you are a god," he said aloud, "then face me." The wind answered first, sharp and sudden. Romanus lifted a heavy iron tool and struck the altar stone. The sound was wrong, not stone cracking, but something deeper. Like bone. He struck again. A foul smell rose from the ground, wet earth mixed with old blood. With a final blow, the altar split. The ground beneath it sank slightly. Romanus stepped back, trembling, not from fear, but from rage. "No more children will be chained to this grave," he declared. That night, no sacrifice was made. And for the first time since Ogidi was buried alive, no child of Kenga was dedicated. Deep beneath the soil, something stirred. The first sign was silence. No dreams, no whispers, no shadows. The sons thought Romanus had won. They were wrong. The second sign was loss. A wealthy son woke one morning to find his barn empty. No footprints, no broken doors, just emptiness. Another son's cattle collapsed and died within days, their mouths filled with soil. A trader's son lost everything on a journey, robbed, beaten, left naked by the road. Within a year, wealth drained from Kenga's male descendants like blood from an open wound. Ogidi had changed her target. Men who once walked proudly now returned to the village ashamed. Some became farmers again, but the land rejected them. Crops failed. Rain avoided their fields. Others turned to theft. One was caught stealing from a shrine and went mad instantly, screaming that a pregnant woman was sitting on his chest. Another killed a man during a robbery and later confessed, saying, "She pushed my hand." Respect vanished. The name of Kenga became a warning. Through it all, Romanus refused to bend. "This suffering is old poison leaving the body," he insisted. But Ogidi was not poison. She was judgment. Romanus began having dreams. Not nightmares. Visions. He saw Ogidi clearly now. Not buried. Not broken. She stood upright. "My altar was not a prison," she told him calmly. It was a reminder. Romanus woke sweating, but still unmoved. "No more blood," he said again. Romanus died suddenly. No sickness. No wound. No warning. They found him seated under a tree, eyes open, lips parted, as though he had been about to speak. That night, rain fell for the first time in months. And somewhere beneath the ground, Ogidi laughed softly. Years passed. The grandchildren grew up poor, angry, and confused. "Why are we different?" they asked. "Why does misfortune follow our name?" They moved from church to church, from prayers to fasting, from prophets to deliverance grounds. Some pastors promised freedom, some demanded money, some fled after strange dreams. Nothing worked. The curse had changed form, but not strength. Ogidi was no longer tied to an altar. She was walking freely. One night, a great-grandchild of Kenga woke screaming. "I saw her," he cried. "She said the final payment is near." And for the first time, the descendants understood. Breaking the altar did not end the covenant. What is the final payment Ogidi demands? Can the curse be reversed without more blood? Or must the lineage of Kenga end completely? Stay tuned for the final episode. Please drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Romanus a savior, or the man who sealed their doom?